Hi, I'm Granny, and we're going down the rabbit hole of the brain. What makes me me and you? What makes us different? What makes us the same? Are we the same because we look like each other or we think like each other? What makes an individual an individual? Is it nature or is it nurture? When I was in my early 40s, I learned my father was diagnosed with cancer. My siblings planned a gathering at Thanksgiving, and we ended up having a sleepover at one of my sister's homes. At the time, four sisters lived in Arizona where we were raised, and three of us lived in other states. We spent the evening reminiscing about growing up, how different experiences affected us, describing the different relationships that we had, adventures that we had gone on. At one point, the conversation included somebody asking, "Who was our parents' favorite?" which confused me because I had never thought of favorites. It never occurred to me. I never felt chosen or ignored. I just was part of the family. I also wondered several times through the evening if I had grown up in the family these siblings were describing. It really was as if what they were sharing was in a completely different family than where I was raised. The only conflict I remember having was if I had a disagreement with one of the twins. We called them all twins, even though some of them were quads or triplets, was when I had a conflict with one of them and then their twin showed up defending them. My mother was pregnant while my father was serving at the end of World War II. She gave birth to twin girls almost a year before he returned home. 4 years later, my mother gave birth to three daughters and a baby that died just prior to delivery, so four. One of the surviving three daughters died when she was 2.5. She had what was referred to as a blue baby because there was a hole in her heart, not allowing blood to get where it needed to be, and so there wasn't enough oxygen in her system, which is why they called it a blue baby. 4 years later, I was born. I was my parents' only single birth. 2 years later, identical twin sisters were born. I grew up with 6 sisters and found myself during the sleepover realizing how very similar we are, but also very different. And there were some distinct differences from each of us, including the twins. It is often wondering, is it our perceptions that make us so different? How we perceive the events that happen to us? Scientists, doctors, philosophers have discussed and debated for hundreds, if not thousands of years over personalities. Some believe personalities are based on an individual's reaction to their environment or perception of experiences. Others believe temperaments and personalities are created through genetics and the environment they're growing up in. Our brain weighs 3 pounds on average and is made up of billions of nerve cells and includes 3 main parts: the cerebrum, cerebellum, and brainstem. And each of those have divisions within them that we will go into later in another episode. The earliest reference to the study of the brain was dated about 5,000 years ago. In 1862, a papyrus was found in a tomb at the Pyramid of Djoser, which is a step pyramid, or referred to, in Saqqara, Egypt. It is the earliest known of papyrus, dated to around 2900 BC. It is known as the Edwin Smith Papyrus and is the oldest known surgical text in the civilization worldwide. The scroll is 15.3 feet long, and there is ongoing debate as to who wrote it. In an earlier episode, we learned how papyrus paper was made. The majority of the papyrus was written by one scribe, with only small sections copied by a second scribe. Experts have determined this by the style of writing and the use of words. Those two scribes express themselves differently from each other, showing differences in their personalities. The papyrus ends abruptly in the middle of a line without designating the author. It is believed that the papyrus is an incomplete copy of an older reference manuscript from the Old Kingdom beginning around 3100 BC because of the type of grammar and terminology used. Some experts speculate that the original author might be Imhotep, an architect, high priest, and physician of the Old Kingdom of Egypt. The papyrus describes 48 medical cases. Each case is detailed according to the nature of the injury, detailing the injuries, the organs involved, wound care, including how they were sewn up. And also, an aside, they added honey to the wounds to prevent infections. And also the results of the individual's long-term recovery. And as a reminder, ancient Greeks, Assyrians, and Egyptians often used honey in the preservation of bodies during the embalming process. It was noted that when Alexander the Great's body was sent to Greece and it was hijacked, it had been preserved in honey also. The papyrus is a medical text describing anatomical and physical observations. It contains the first known descriptions of the brain structure, including the meninges, which are the three membranes that cover and protect the brain and the spinal cord. And how about this? And the intracranial pulsations of the brain, meaning the person was alive when they were being cared for by that doctor. In other words, there were brain surgeries going on over 5,000 years ago. On this papyrus, of the 48 cases that were listed, there were 27 that dealt with head injuries. Cases 1 through 10 was involving the skull, overlying soft tissue, brain, and spine. Cases 11 through 14 had to do with the nose. Cases 15 and 17, the upper jaw, maxillary area. Cases 18 through 22, the temporal region behind the ears on either side. Cases 23 through 27, ears, mandible, the lower jaw, chin, and lips. Remember when we went down the rabbit hole of the Library of Alexandria? We learned how wisdom and knowledge is discovered and lost. It is the same with this papyrus. Experts state the procedure of this papyrus that was described demonstrate the level of knowledge of medicines that surpassed that of Hippocrates, who lived 1,000 years later. This papyrus documented diagnosis and treatment of spinal injuries that can still be regarded as the state-of-art reasoning for modern clinical practice. Mind-blowing. The text described the influence of the brain injuries on parts of the body, now recognized as paralysis. The relationship between the location of the cranial injury and the side of the body it affected is also recorded, while crushing injuries of the vertebrae were noted to impair motor and sensory functions. Because of its practical nature and the types of injuries investigated, it is believed that this papyrus served as a textbook for the trauma that resulted from military battles. Our brains are so complex that people have been studying it for over 5,000 years, and there are still more questions than answers. Thank you for spending your time with me, and please join me again when Granny goes down the rabbit hole on the brain, episode 2. Please like and subscribe. Thank you.